It's a new year and there's a new NeuVector. That's right, the complete security platform for your Kubernetes and other container environments has released a brand new version, version 5.1, and we'd like to share some of the highlights in this video. Let's do this. So, NeuVector 5.1 has been released to the wild and to you, and I'd like to go over some highlights of the release notes, not all of them. You can find them here at opendocs.neuvector.com, right here in the release notes. I'm not going to read all of them to you. This is not bedtime story hour. Your adults can read them all, but we will highlight a few of them I think you will find exciting. We think they're exciting. Before I do that, a big thank you, yes, thank you, for all of your contributions and feedback to the NeuVector platform. That's how this platform grows and improves based upon your usage and the things that you get out of the platform that you find the most valuable. So we couldn't do it without your support. All right, on to the docs. Of course, it's a cliche. There are bug fixes and performance improvements, but there really are bug fixes and performance improvements in here. NeuVector has been tuned to cater towards the very large environments. For those of you who have multiple clusters or extremely large clusters or both, performance is improved there, and also at the other end of the spectrum, where you're talking about things like edge deployments, NeuVector has gotten even better and better at thinning down its footprint to improve performance at the edge. Encourage you to try those things out. The other thing I'd like to talk to you about is we'll take a look at some of the highlights that are inside of these release notes. One of them is this ability to do auto-scaling of the scanners in your Kubernetes cluster. And we're talking about the scanners. Those are the things that actually do, well, as their name implies, the scanning of both compliance and CVE's vulnerabilities in your environment. NeuVector uses those scanner pods to scan, and each one does their work in serial, and then they work in parallel across the environment, depending upon how many scanner pods are deployed. All of the arbitration and control of that comes from the NeuVector platform. But if you've got an environment that has a lot of images, say in a registry, and you're finding that it's taking maybe hours, despite the fact that NeuVector is probably one of the fastest scanners out there in the market, you certainly could scale that environment to have more. Well, now NeuVector has the ability to do that right inside of the platform. If you turn it on, there's two different strategies. One of them is delayed. It waits for 90 seconds to react, and the other one is more immediate. And as you'll see here, what's happening is it's essentially looking to see if the queue is backing up in any of the scanners. You can then set scale, and this is really just a Kubernetes deployment scale that's happening underneath. As the queue fills up, it'll horizontally expand out until that queue becomes empty and contracts back in again. Very handy for improving those large registry scans. I would caution you to use this with a little bit of care. You don't want to be scaling to a dozen scanners if you've got a particular cluster that can't handle that. So investigate it, research, decide if this works for you. Another one I'd like to point out, and we'll do this very briefly, we can dig into a little bit deeper either in person, experiment with yourself, or we'll go over another video, but it's these enhanced admission control rules. Admission control in NeuVector has always been very powerful, especially for those of us who are sad that PSPs have gone away. They're still here inside of NeuVector. But now we're able to do a little bit more wildcarding. So you can actually take all of these configurations and check for particular deployment steps inside of your environment and decide whether deployments are allowed to be allowed or not. We've also got some semantic comparisons to go on, so I can do a greater than or less than on a particular version number of a package inside of your environment, so that from a security standpoint, you can perform those checks and make sure that deployments in your environment are following particular security rules. And the third thing I'd like to point out, I'm keeping track of how I'm counting here from the big ones, this is the one that a lot of us are very excited about and you've been asking for, and that's the ability to federate the CVE database and the registry scanning. Now, as you may recall, NeuVector is really great at doing federation across multiple clusters, whereby you have a primary cluster and then managed clusters underneath, where you can send all sorts of your security rules, response rules, and admission control rules down to the child clusters, and you have domain-wide security in place. What we've added here with the registry is the ability to add a registry, again, at that primary cluster, and then all of the child clusters will have that registry available to them, so you don't have to enter this multiple times. But the real wonderful part here is the fact that the child clusters, the managed clusters, get to take advantage of the scanning that was performed on the primary cluster. So for those of you with very large environments and you are running up against either bandwidth issues or somebody's diming you every time you grab an image, and you know what I'm talking about, this allows these images to be scanned just one time. Those results become available to the rest of the clusters inside of your environment, and you're not pulling them over and over again. It's very, very easy to set up. You build a new registry entry, say that you want to federate it, and it shows up in those clusters underneath. Those are just some of the highlights. We're very excited about the rest of them. Please check them out. If you're rolling NeuVector 5.1 out to your environment today, that is an easy rolling update. And we thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.